On the 15th day since Menglong's mysterious death, the city awoke to a sense of anticipation that had been building for 2 weeks. Reporters crowded outside police headquarters, their lenses pointed like weapons at the entrance. Fans clutching flowers stood in groups, whispering prayers for the late star. Others shouted slogans demanding truth, demanding answers, demanding justice. Everyone believed the case would finally close today, that the authorities would bring clarity to a tragedy that had haunted millions. Yet when the press conference began, the words that emerged from the police spokesperson's lips detonated like a bomb. Instead of a closure, the announcement opened a darker, more terrifying chapter. The room fell into stunned silence as the spokesperson revealed the autopsy findings. The forensic team had discovered not one, multiple substances in Menglong's system, powerful sedatives mixed in dangerous combinations. These were not medications he had ever been prescribed, and there was no evidence he had voluntarily taken them. More chilling still, his injuries did not match the pattern of a simple fall. The angles, the fractures, the bruises, they spoke of external force, of something staged to appear accidental but which forensic science now exposed as a lie. The spokesperson's voice trembled only slightly as he declared, "The cause of death is officially classified as abnormal, inconsistent with an accident. There is strong evidence of external involvement." Air seemed to vanish from the room. Journalists gasped, pens clattering to the floor, camera shutters exploding as they captured the faces of officials who, for the first time, admitted what many had whispered all along: this was not an accident. But the revelations did not end there. The spokesperson continued, unveiling another detail that sent shivers down every spine. Witnesses had reported hearing horrifying screams around midnight on the night Menglong died. These were not faint sounds easily dismissed, they were prolonged, desperate, filled with terror. Neighbors described the cries as a man begging for help, echoing through the quiet corridors of the building. Yet investigators could not confirm definitively whether those screams belonged to Menglong or someone else who may have been present in the apartment. That single detail transformed the case from tragic accident into chilling mystery. The gallery of journalists erupted with shouted questions. But the spokesperson raised a hand. "We acknowledge the testimony of multiple witnesses regarding screams. Consider this vital evidence in the ongoing investigation." By now, the press conference had become chaos. Reporters scrambled to transmit updates, their headlines growing more dramatic with each minute. Social media platforms buckled under the surge of posts. Hashtags like "Justice for Menglong," "Autopsy Shock," and "Murder Probe" dominating trends worldwide. But the police had prepared one final revelation, a declaration that would make Day 15 the most infamous moment of the case. They outlined 3 mysteries that, even with 15 days of relentless investigation, remained unresolved. First, what exactly were the substances found in Menglong's body? The toxicology reports revealed a cocktail of drugs not commonly available, raising urgent questions about who supplied them and why. Second, who else was present at the scene? Surveillance cameras in the building had inexplicably malfunctioned for precisely 17 minutes, a gap that perfectly overlapped the estimated time of death. Was this mere coincidence, or deliberate sabotage? Third, why were messages sent from Menglong's phone after the forensic team determined he was already dead? The timestamp text suggested someone else had used his phone to create the illusion that he was alive. A macabre attempt to manipulate the timeline. When these mysteries were read aloud, the room shook with tension. Journalists shouted over one another. Families of fans cried out in disbelief. And even seasoned detectives at the back shifted uncomfortably. The spokesperson paused, then delivered the final blow. "This case is no longer being treated as an accident. We are officially investigating it as a potential homicide." Words ricocheted across the world within seconds. Channels broke into live broadcasts with urgent banners: "Autopsy bombshell, Menglong case declared murder probe." Fans collapsed into tears outside the headquarters. Each other, screaming his name. Protesters raised placards that read "Murdered, Not Forgotten," and "Justice for You." International outlets compared the revelation to the biggest scandals of the decade, calling it a turning point in public trust in the entertainment world. Inside the industry, shockwaves spread just as quickly. Production companies that had quietly distanced themselves now issued frantic statements. Colleagues spoke in whispers, fearing they too might be dragged into the widening investigation. Rumors of cover-ups, of powerful figures involved, swirled with renewed intensity. Some speculated that Menglong had uncovered secrets that made him a target. That his death was not random but orchestrated by those with much to lose. Others pointed fingers at people close to him, suggesting betrayal from within his inner circle. The police refused to name suspects, but their declaration that this was a homicide ensured suspicion would fall on everyone around him. Public fury grew uncontrollable. Crowds gathered outside police stations, chanting for arrests. Online petitions demanded swift justice, gathering millions of signatures in hours. Candlelight vigils transformed into protests, with fans carrying banners soaked by tears and rain. "We will not let him be forgotten," they cried. The words of the police spokesperson echoed in their minds, 3 mysteries unresolved. 3 questions haunting every soul who followed the case. Who drugged Menglong? Who silenced his screams? Who manipulated his final moments to hide the truth? Day 15 had begun with the hope of closure, with a shattering realization that the case was darker, more sinister, and more complicated than anyone had imagined. Once dismissed as an accident was now a murder investigation. As once grief had become rage, and as the world processed the shocking forensic report, the chilling midnight screams, and the unresolved mysteries, one truth became undeniable: the death of Menglong was not the end of a life, but the beginning of a nightmare that had only just begun. The fallout from Day 15 was immediate and ferocious. What had begun as a routine press conference ended in global headlines. The air heavy with shock as the police officially declared Menglong's death a potential homicide. By evening, every news channel carried the story, commentators dissecting each word of the spokesperson's statement. Shocking autopsy. The midnight screams. The 3 mysteries unresolved became the holy trinity of speculation, feeding an insatiable public desperate for truth. Had been grief now boiled into outrage, and what had been whispers now roared as demands for answers. Fans across the nation lit candles outside Menglong's former residence, their voices trembling as they sang his songs into the night. Some carried signs with his face surrounded by black borders. Others clutched flowers. But all of them echoed the same cry: "Justice for you." Social media turned into a battlefield of theories, accusations, and desperate pleas. Hashtags surged into the millions: "Justice for Menglong," "Day 15 shock," "Murder probe," each post amplifying the pressure on authorities to deliver swift and decisive action. International outlets joined in, comparing the case to the most infamous celebrity scandals of the century, declaring it a mirror reflecting the darkness of fame. Autopsy revelations remain the most chilling. Experts explained that the substances found in his body were no ordinary sedatives. They were a dangerous cocktail, capable of incapacitating a man of his build within minutes. Questions multiplied: who had access to such drugs? And why were they in his system? Toxicologists warned that these were not recreational substances but ones often used in medical or criminal settings. The implication was horrifying: someone had intentionally subdued him. Yet the police could not yet name the source. Became the first of the unresolved mysteries, a gaping wound in the narrative that begged for answers. The second mystery grew even darker. Surveillance footage had been considered the backbone of modern investigations. Yet in Menglong's case, cameras in his building failed at the worst possible moment. 15 minutes of blackout, coinciding exactly with the forensic estimate of his death. 17 minutes erased from history, leaving only speculation. Investigators admitted they could not rule out tampering. The public interpreted this as confirmation of conspiracy. Who had the power to disable cameras? Neighbors claimed they saw unfamiliar figures in the corridors, shadows that disappeared into stairwells. Nothing could be proven. Fear spread like poison. If such a thing could happen to a public figure like Menglong, what chance did ordinary people have against forces hidden in the dark? The third mystery was perhaps the most haunting of all. Messages sent from Menglong's phone after his confirmed time of death suggested a macabre deception. At first, these were dismissed as automated notifications or technical glitches. But forensic examination confirmed manual input. Someone had typed those words. Someone had sent those messages. His phone after he had taken his last breath. And what purpose did the charade serve? To mislead investigators? To comfort loved ones into believing he was still alive? Or to buy time for an escape? The ambiguity was intolerable, and it tore open the wound of uncertainty even wider. Mysteries mounted. Public anger escalated. Demonstrations turned into marches. and marches into rallies. Streets filled with chants, banners, portraits of Menglong framed in mourning black. At one gathering, fans released thousands of white balloons into the night sky, each bearing his name, a symbol of lives cut short and questions left unanswered. Parents held their children close, warning them about the dangers of betrayal, while young fans sobbed openly, their innocence shattered by the realization that even their idols could be swallowed by violence. Meanwhile, the entertainment industry trembled. Production companies scrubbed Menglong's unfinished projects from schedules, citing sensitivity concerns. Yet ironically, his past work soared in popularity. His songs streamed endlessly, his dramas climbing back to the top of the charts. He became both martyr and legend, immortalized by tragedy. Colleagues expressed grief, but some whispered fearfully that speaking too much could make them targets as well. Whispers grew of a shadowy network, powerful figures connected to the blackout, the drugs, and the cover-up. Was Menglong silenced because he knew too much? Had his death been a message to others who dared defy unseen masters? Investigators, under immense pressure, expanded their net. Friends, colleagues, former managers, all were summoned for questioning. Raids were conducted in pharmacies and clinics suspected of supplying illegal sedatives. Technicians were called in to analyze the disabled cameras, searching for fingerprints of tampering. Digital forensic teams worked around the clock to trace the origin of the mysterious messages from Menglong's phone. But every step seemed to reveal only deeper darkness. It opened into more questions. Each testimony added confusion instead of a clarity. The case was no longer just about one man's death, it had become a labyrinth with no visible exit. The government faced mounting criticism. Haters accused the police of incompetence or even complicity in the early days of the investigation. Why had the accident theory been entertained so long? Why had vital evidence been overlooked? The phrase cover-up circulated in headlines, poisoning trust. Officials promised transparency. The public was unforgiving. On the 15th day, the story had shifted from sorrow to scandal, from mourning to mistrust. Internationally, the case drew comparisons to notorious unsolved mysteries. Foreign media speculated about organized crime, entertainment industry corruption, and political entanglements. Some suggested Menglong's death could expose an entire hidden system of exploitation. The more the authorities promised answers, the more the world doubted their ability to provide them. Day 15 had not only failed to bring closure, it had cast suspicion on everything and everyone. Inside his family home, Menglong's parents and siblings wept as they watched the news. For them, every revelation was both torture and vindication. They had never believed their son's death was accidental. The screams reported by neighbors echoed their worst nightmares. The drugs in his system confirmed their suspicions. Yet the unanswered mysteries left them suspended in grief with no resolution. They demanded justice in public statements, authorities not to falter, not to let the truth be buried by power or fear. Their cries struck a chord with millions, amplifying the pressure on investigators to deliver results. The more the case spiraled, the more Menglong became not just a victim but a symbol. Embodied the fragility of truth in a world dominated by image and power. His face became a rallying cry, his name synonymous with a demand for accountability. Murals appeared on city walls, candles burned in endless vigils, and fans vowed to continue fighting until the three mysteries were answered. As night fell on day 15, the city glowed with both grief and fury. Outside the police headquarters, crowds refused to disperse. They chanted his name, their voices rising into the night, a living echo of the screams that had haunted the case. Inside the building, investigators worked under relentless pressure, eyes red with fatigue, their desks littered with files and unanswered questions. The spokesperson's words lingered in every mind: this was no accident. This was a homicide. But who is responsible? And why? Truth, once thought close at hand, now seemed further away than ever. The shocking autopsy had dismantled the accident narrative. The midnight screams had pierced the silence with terror. The unresolved mysteries had plunged the case into chaos. 15 was not closure. It was revelation, disruption, opening of wounds that may never heal. The world watched, helpless and horrified, as the Menglong case transformed into a story not just of death, but of darkness without end. And as the cameras recorded the candlelight vigils, voices chanted for justice. One question echoed louder than all others: Would the next 15 days uncover the truth? Or bury it deeper in the shadows?